What if your favorite classic films were hiding a crime scene in plain sight? One where beloved novels were sliced, stitched, and glam-polished until their own authors wouldn't recognize them. Grab your popcorn and a magnifying glass, because we're cracking open the studio vault to expose 12 Golden Age movies that rewrote, declawed, or outright reversed the masterpieces they claimed to honor. From a hunchback who suddenly finds a happy ending to a white whale saddled with a love story, these cinematic classics sparkle on the outside but bleed ink on the inside. Stick around and you'll never look at a Hollywood adaptation or the book it came from the same way again. Ready to meet the stories that lost their souls on the cutting room floor? Let's dive in. Moby Dick, 1956. Herman Melville wrote a sprawling meditation on fate, obsession, and mankind's cosmic insignificance. Warner Brothers worried a whale without a romance would sink, so script doctors inserted a longing wife who gazes out to sea, waiting for Ahab. Fedallah, the eerie oracle whose prophecies give the novel its fatal pulse, was scrapped. Huston's ocean shots thundered, yet the philosophical marrow floated away like driftwood. Classroom readers expecting a brisk sea yarn often hit Chapter 32's whale taxonomy and bail, victims of expectations Hollywood set. The adaptation proved you can film the whale, claim faithfulness, and still dodge the book's central question: what drives us to chase impossible vengeance? Hollywood's answer: throw in a phantom sweetheart and call it relatable. Meanwhile, Tolstoy was bracing for an even larger edit bay. Jane Eyre, 1943. Charlotte Brontë armed Jane with fiery independence. She demands respect, decides her own worth, and returns to Rochester only as an equal. Hollywood tilted the spotlight onto Rochester's brooding magnetism. Jane's crucible of self-respect shrank to soft devotion, her defiant speeches trimmed to whispers. Even the ending, where Jane secures financial freedom, speeds by so quickly it feels incidental. Viewers soaked up Gothic romance, unaware they'd missed one of literature's earliest manifestos on female agency. The message was subtle but lasting. Extraordinary love stories don't need to show the hard fight for equality that makes them extraordinary. Bronte's rallying cry became a murmur, pretty, haunting, and strangely obedient. And if costumes could mislead audiences about autonomy, they could also scramble entire timelines. The Three Musketeers, 1948. Alexander Dumas painted his swashbucklers in shades of gray. MGM slapped on bright primary colors. Athos's wife-hanging backstory? Deleted. D'Artagnan's opportunism polished into boyish charm. Gene Kelly's acrobatics dazzled, and villains' twisted mustaches so grand you could spot them from the lobby. The message was plain. True heroes never spill innocent blood, and true villains never elicit sympathy. Family audiences cheered, but Dumas's inquiry into honor versus morality evaporated under the stage lights. This clean-fit adventure formula would echo through Hollywood for decades. Proof that ambiguity sells fewer popcorn tubs than crystal-clear good versus evil. What got lost was Dumas's sly reminder that every sword can point two ways, slicing righteousness and self-interest in the same stroke. Yet moral bleach wasn't the only solvent. Sometimes sheer narrative sprawl had to be boiled down to syrup. Pride and Prejudice, 1940. Regency elegance vanished under Victorian chiffon when MGM decreed bigger skirts equaled bigger box office. The Bennett sisters now flounce in hoop skirts decades out of date, and Austen's precise social codes blur into generic drawing room comedy. Mr. Collins becomes pure slapstick, Lady Catherine a pantomime villain, and Elizabeth's nuanced rebellion looks downright modern because the authentic restraints are gone. This chronological hop made the story easier, but it also robbed viewers of understanding why Elizabeth's confidence was so radical. Accuracy bowed to spectacle, and for years classrooms displayed stills of the wrong century, a textbook case of costume design rewriting history. Our final stop shows how nostalgia can sandpaper satire so smooth you barely notice it once had teeth. David Copperfield, 1935. Dickens intended David's childhood to sting like frostbite, child labor, debtor's prison, systemic rot. Producer Irving Thalberg saw a risk. Audiences might recoil from a 2-hour parade of misery. So, director Cooker cherry-picked feel-good chapters: Pegotti's warm hearth, Macabre's jovial deaths, Steerforth's seaside flirtations. Factories, workhouses, and the savage bite of poverty barely make cameo appearances. Critics hailed the film's heart, but Dickens' call to social arms was muzzled. For many Americans, this picture painted Victorian England as quaintly tough, not soul-crushing. Hollywood learned it could siphon tears without igniting outrage, a talent it would refine when tackling Russian adultery. The movie became a comfort blanket masquerading as a crusade, and nobody at the box office complained. Because what's romance without a little philosophy? Omitted. The Picture of Dorian Gray, 1945. Oscar Wilde flaunted hedonism. The production code forced filmmakers to play peekaboo. Dorian's pleasures hide behind quick dissolves, a shadowy opium den, a scream from off-screen, a sudden musical sting. His rumored affairs? Alluded to in hushed gossip, never named. The portrait's grotesque transformations, filmed in shocking Technicolor close-ups, do the heavy lifting because the sins can't. Viewers understood corruption was terrible without glimpsing a single forbidden thrill. Wilde's jab at hypocritical virtue got dulled into a generic cautionary tale. Vanity bad, innocence good. The cinematic equivalent of snipping thorns off a rose, then warning you not to touch it. But the code also clipped wings of a different kind, ones that fought for a woman's autonomy.
War and Peace, 1956. How do you cram Napoleon, national identity, and page-long treatises on historical determinism into a tidy runtime? Answer: you don't. You choreograph a ball and fire some cannons. Paramount's epic lavished money on battlefield smoke and shimmering gowns, but Pierre's philosophical epiphanies and Tolstoy's scathing essays vanished. Ironically, the movie crowns great men like Kutuzov exactly as Tolstoy warns against. Audiences left with glorious spectacle and a love triangle, Natasha torn between charm and conscience, while the novel's thesis lay buried like cannonballs in the snow. Even Tolstoy's ironic joke that history laughs at our illusions of control was replaced by orchestral triumph. If philosophy could vanish, what chance did taboo pleasures have against moral police? Wuthering Heights, 1939. Emily Bronte built a Gothic machine fueled by generational spite, but producer Samuel Goldwyn ran out of patience and runtime halfway through. Heathcliff and Cathy's children, the key to Bronte's redemption arc, never made it past casting. Instead, Goldwyn greenlit a ghostly epilogue where the doomed lovers stroll the moors arm in arm, as if death were merely a sunset horseback ride. Romantic? Maybe. Faithful? Not even close. Bronte's warning that unchecked passion breeds fresh misery got replaced by Hallmark-haunted embrace. The public fell hard for the slimmed-down tragedy, and Wuthering Heights became shorthand for toxic romance, not cycle of inherited trauma. Once Hollywood realized viewers would cheer for half a story wrapped in a bow, the knife kept flashing, proving you can build an empire of emotion on a foundation of omissions. Next stop, turning rogues into role models with a single coat of Technicolor. The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, 1938. Mark Twain used Tom's hijinks to poke sharp sticks at church sermons, school drills, and frontier hypocrisy. David O. Selznick, chasing all-age charm, trimmed every jab until only the grin remained. The Sunday school scene loses its sarcastic edge. The graveyard adventure gains heroic glow. Aunt Polly's discipline seems wise rather than ridiculous. Wrapped in Technicolor, the film sells small-town America as innocent nostalgia instead of Twain's sly critique. Generations of students met this sanitized Tom first, so the real book's satire often felt jarringly mean by comparison. proof of how Hollywood quietly reshaped expectations before a single page is turned. Twain himself once warned that censorship is telling a man he can't have a steak because a baby can't chew it. Here, Hollywood served milk and sugar, then called it prime rib. Anna Karenina, 1935. Tolstoy's canvas sprawls from ballroom gossip to plowed fields and spiritual crisis. MGM folded it into a single headline: Garbo loves, Garbo suffers. Levin's existential journey and debates on agrarian reform landed on the editing room floor. What remained was lace, longing, and a punitive train whistle. Viewers got high fashion and high tragedy. Tolstoy's interrogation of happiness, faith, and societal hypocrisy never boarded the train. The gloss worked, box office receipts soared, but it taught studios to treat deep philosophy like an optional appendix. Garbo's poised anguish sold tickets. Levin's muddy epiphanies, executives argued, would only sell yawns. That mindset would soon stalk the deck of a whaling ship, harpoon at the ready. Rebecca, 1940. Daphne du Maurier's murderous love story arrived in Hollywood just as moral watchdogs locked the gates. The production code's verdict was blunt. A husband who kills his wife cannot be allowed to stay the hero. Hitchcock, cornered, rewired the entire backbone of the plot. Rebecca now slips during an argument, leaving Maxim legally and morally clean. Du Maurier's spell of complicity snapped. Viewers could root for the new Mrs. De Winter without squirming. The atmosphere stayed deliciously eerie, but the question, would you protect a killer you love, dissolved into sea foam. Hitchcock later admitted the change made the ending feel like a polite handshake where a knife twist belonged. Moviegoers never saw the darker mirror du Maurier held to marriage, and screenwriters learned a costly lesson: bend a plot or break under the censors. Hitchcock bent, while privately grousing that the code could turn a tale of corruption into what he called a ghost story without the ghost. The very next year, another classic was chopped clean in half. The Hunchback of Notre Dame, 1939. Victor Hugo ended his novel with bones locked in a crypt and hope sealed shut, but RKO decided Depression-era views deserved a hug instead of a gut punch. In the book, Esmeralda hangs, Quasimodo dies beside her, and Paris keeps grinding its pour. Test screenings proved too many handkerchiefs meant too few tickets, so producers ordered emergency reshoots. The result? Quasimodo swings in like an action star, slashes the noose, and watches Esmeralda canter off with handsome grimoire. The film's final shot, our lonely bell ringer gazing wistfully at the city, looks poignant until you remember Hugo wanted society's cruelty, not Hollywood's comfort. That swap didn't just lighten the mood, it rewired the story's moral circuitry, teaching millions that tragedy can be cured with one heroic gesture. It also set a template. If an ending feels too bleak, studios will rewrite destiny on the spot, even if that means swapping a centuries-old indictment of injustice for a 2-minute curtain call. And the Hays Code was only getting warmed up.